Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast on how to improve your writing in English. My name is Emma, and I'm here with my good friend Max. Today, we're really excited to talk with you about writing because it's something that can help you in so many areas, from school and work to even just sending messages to friends. Right, Max?
Absolutely, Emma. Writing in English might seem tricky, but it can actually be fun once you get the hang of it. And it's such an important skill. You can use it to express your ideas, share stories, or even just write a great email. And the good news is, with some practice and tips, anyone can improve, so let's get started.
Yes, so for this first part, we'll focus on getting comfortable with the basics of writing. These are small steps, but they make a big difference. And no worries, we'll keep everything simple.
That's right, let's start with a question. When you're writing in English, do you ever worry about making mistakes? Maybe spelling or grammar.
Oh, that's a big one. A lot of people feel nervous about making mistakes when they write. But here's something to remember: mistakes are okay. They're actually part of learning, so if you make a mistake, don't feel bad. Think of it as part of the process. And there are some easy ways to help you make fewer mistakes too.
Yes, one great way to get better at spelling and grammar is to read more. You can read books, news articles, or even short stories. When you read in English, you get to see how words are used in sentences. You also learn the right spelling of words just by seeing them often.
Reading is like magic for writing. It's almost like exercise for your brain. The more you read, the more your brain remembers how words should look and sound. Plus, it can give you ideas for your own writing. And hey, you don't need to read difficult books. Start with short, simple stories or even comics if you like those.
Exactly. Another helpful tip is to keep a notebook or a digital file where you can write new words you learn. It can be a small list of words that you found interesting or difficult. Then, every day or so, look at that list and try to use those words in your sentences. You don't have to use them in big paragraphs, just small sentences are fine to practice.
That's a great idea, Max. And this brings us to our next tip, which is practicing simple sentences. You don't have to write long paragraphs at first. Just start with small sentences, like, "Today, I saw a dog," or "I like reading books." Try to make sentences about what you see or feel. This way, you get used to putting words together in English.
Yes, and you can even use daily things around you for this. If you're cooking, for example, write a sentence like, "I'm making pasta" or "I'm cutting vegetables." It's a nice way to practice and use new words you're learning.
And let's talk about one more fun way to practice, which is journaling. Keeping a simple journal where you write about your day, even just a few sentences, can be very helpful. You can write things like, "Today, I went to the store and bought fruit," or "It was sunny, so I took a walk." This not only helps with your writing, but also makes English feel like a natural part of your day.
That's a great point, Emma, and remember, when you write, don't worry too much about making it perfect. Focus on getting your ideas down. Later, you can look at your sentences again and see if there's anything you want to fix. This is called editing, and it's something every writer does.
Yes, editing is key. Think of it as polishing your work. When you write something, it doesn't have to be perfect on the first try. Go back, read it again, and make changes if needed. Maybe you notice a word you want to change or a sentence that sounds better in a different way. Editing helps make your writing clearer.
And here's another good tip for editing: read your work out loud. It might feel a bit funny at first, but it really helps. When you hear your words, you can often catch mistakes or find ways to make your sentences better.
That's so true, Max. Sometimes when we read silently, we miss things. But when we read out loud, it's easier to spot small mistakes. It's like giving your writing a final check before sharing it.
So, to sum up a bit, our first part here is all about starting with simple steps. We talked about reading to improve spelling and grammar, practicing short sentences, keeping a journal, and editing your work by reading it out loud. These are all easy ways to get more comfortable with English writing.
Yes, and remember, you don't have to rush. Take it one step at a time. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. We hope these tips give you a good starting point for writing confidently.
So let's dive right back in. In our first part, we talked about building good writing habits like reading more, keeping a list of new words, and even keeping a journal. Now, Emma, let's talk a bit about what comes next, like organizing your ideas. Once you have an idea for something to write, what do you think is the best way to start?
That's a good question, Max. When we have an idea, sometimes it feels a little messy. All the thoughts and words are just floating around. So a great way to start is by using an outline. It's like a simple plan. Think about what you want to say and put those main points down in order.
Yes, an outline helps you see the big picture. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. For example, if you're writing about your favorite food, you could make an outline like this. First, talk about what it is, then why you like it, and finally, how you feel when you eat it. That's it, just 3 main points.
Exactly. And the nice thing about an outline is that it makes your writing feel clearer and easier to follow. Your readers, or even just you reading it later, can understand the flow. This is really helpful when writing longer pieces, like essays or even stories. Just think about the beginning, middle, and end. Simple steps like this make a big difference.
Speaking of stories, another great way to practice writing is to think of short, simple stories or experiences from your life. Even if it's something small, like my trip to the park or a rainy day I remember, you can use these ideas to practice structuring a story. Start with what happened first, then what you did, and finally, how it ended or how you felt about it.
Yes, and the cool part about writing small stories is that they don't have to be long. You could even write just a paragraph, like, I went to the park yesterday. I saw a cute dog playing with a ball, and it made me smile. The weather was sunny, and it felt really nice. Simple stories like this are great for practicing.
And don't worry about making it perfect, just like we talked about before. The goal is to practice putting your thoughts into English sentences. And here's another idea if you want to write longer stories or essays. Break it down into smaller parts. Start with one part of the story and then come back later to write the next part. You don't have to finish everything in one go.
I love that tip. Writing in smaller sections can make it feel less overwhelming. And speaking of that, let's talk about vocabulary. One of the best ways to improve your writing is by learning new words. But here's the thing, you don't need a lot of big, fancy words to write well.
Yes, writing well doesn't mean using big words. It means using the right words. For example, instead of saying consume when talking about food, you can just say eat. Or instead of utilize, you can say use. Keeping it simple helps make your writing clear and easy to understand. And if you want to learn new words, try to learn words that are useful in everyday conversations.
Absolutely. And another good thing to remember about vocabulary is to use words you already know. When you're writing, it's okay to use simple words and expressions. It actually sounds more natural that way. For example, if you want to say something is nice, you can just say nice instead of trying to find a word like pleasant or delightful if those words aren't familiar to you yet.
That's a great point, Emma, and to help remember new words, try using them in your sentences. For example, if you learn the word beautiful, try to write a sentence like, the sunset was beautiful, or I saw a beautiful flower. When you use new words in sentences, they stick in your memory better. Plus, it's fun to see how you can use them in different ways.
Exactly. And speaking of using words, let's talk about connecting words. These are words like and, but and because. They help connect ideas and make your writing flow smoothly. For example, if you're writing about your favorite hobby, you might say, I love drawing because it makes me feel relaxed. Using because here shows why you love drawing.
Yes, and connecting words are so helpful when you're writing. You can use and to add more information, like I like drawing and painting, or you can use but to show contrast, like I love drawing, but I don't like drawing with markers. These small words make a big difference in helping readers understand your thoughts.
Exactly. And if you use connecting words, your sentences will flow naturally. So here's a quick exercise for anyone listening. Try writing a few sentences using and, but, or because. Maybe something like, I enjoy cooking because it's creative. Or I like reading books, but I don't like reading the news. It's a great way to practice.
That's a great exercise, Emma, and here's another tip. When you're writing, try to keep your sentences short and clear. Long sentences can be confusing, especially if you're just starting to practice. For example, instead of saying, yesterday, I went to the park and it was sunny, so I walked around and then I sat down on a bench and read a book, you can split it into two sentences. Like, yesterday, I went to the park, it was sunny, so I walked around and read a book.
Yes, shorter sentences make your writing much easier to read. Plus, it's a great way to avoid mistakes. When sentences get too long, it's easy to lose track of your ideas or make grammar errors. So try to keep it simple and clear.
Another thing that helps with clear writing is using punctuation marks like periods, commas, and question marks. These small marks can make a big difference in how your writing sounds. For example, a period ends a sentence, showing that one idea is complete. Commas help separate parts of a sentence, making it easier to understand.
Right, and a question mark, of course, is used to ask a question. Using the right punctuation gives your writing rhythm and makes it easier to follow. Try practicing with different sentences, using periods to show when an idea ends and commas to break up thoughts in longer sentences. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we all learn.
That's so true, and here's something else you can try. After you write a paragraph, read it out loud, just like we said before. This can help you hear if it sounds natural or if any sentences feel too long. If something feels off, try breaking up the sentence or adding a comma. It's a quick way to improve your writing style.
Yes, and one more fun way to get better at writing is by describing things around you. For example, look at something in your room, like a chair, and write a sentence or two about it. Maybe you say, the chair is brown and soft. It's my favorite chair to sit in when I read. This helps you practice describing things in simple ways, which is a great skill in writing.
That's such a good idea, Emma. Describing things also helps you think in English and notice details you might otherwise ignore. And it can be anything: a cup, a tree, or even the weather outside. It's a good way to make writing feel more personal and interesting.
So today we've talked about organizing your ideas, using simple words, adding connecting words, and keeping sentences clear and short. These are all great steps for anyone looking to get better at writing. Don't be afraid to try new things and practice often. The more you write, the better you'll get.
All right, let's get back to it. So we've already covered a lot about writing, from organizing ideas to using connecting words and keeping sentences clear. In this part, let's talk about adding more creativity to our writing, learning from examples, and finally, editing and finishing our work. Sound good, Emma?
Absolutely, Max. Adding creativity is such a great way to make writing more fun and personal. And remember, creativity doesn't have to mean writing long stories or poems. It can be as simple as adding details or describing things in a unique way. For example, instead of saying, the sky is blue, you could say, the sky is a bright, clear blue, like the ocean on a sunny day. Little details like that can make your writing come alive.
That's a great example, Emma. Describing things in a unique way helps the reader imagine exactly what you're thinking. And it's something you can practice every day. For example, if you're writing about your day, try adding just one extra detail to make it more interesting. Instead of "I went to the store," you could write "I went to the store and saw fresh, colorful vegetables lined up in baskets. See." Just a small change, but it makes the picture clearer.
Exactly, and don't worry if it feels strange at first. Adding details takes practice. Another fun way to build creativity is by using comparisons, like as or like. For example, if you want to say something is soft, you could say the pillow was as soft as a cloud. Or if something is very noisy, you might say the room was as loud as a busy street. These comparisons are fun and make writing more colorful.
Yes, and remember, you don't have to use a lot of fancy words to be creative. Sometimes the simplest words can create the strongest images. Just think about how things look, sound, or feel and describe them in a way that's personal to you. For example, if you write "the coffee smelled warm and comforting," like home, it tells the reader a lot with just a few words.
I love that example, Max. And here's another great way to improve creativity: learning from other writers. This could be from books, articles, or even short stories. When you read something that you like, notice how the writer describes things or organizes their ideas. You can learn so much just by paying attention to other writing styles.
That's a great point, Emma, and you can also practice by copying sentences that you like. For example, if you read a sentence that's really interesting, write it down in your notebook. Then, try changing a few words to make it your own. This way, you're practicing both learning and writing at the same time.
Absolutely, and don't feel bad about trying out different styles. Over time, you'll find your own way of writing, which will feel natural and comfortable. Plus, reading different styles helps you see new ways to say things. You might even find that you enjoy a certain kind of writing, like stories or journal entries, more than others.
Yes, exploring different styles is so helpful. Now, another important step is to practice writing longer pieces sometimes, like paragraphs or even short essays. And to make it easier, try starting with a question. For example, what do I enjoy doing in my free time? Or what's a place I'd like to visit? Answering a question gives you a clear purpose and helps your ideas flow.
That's a great tip, Max. Questions can be a really good starting point because they focus your writing. You could even make a list of questions about things that interest you, like what's my favorite food and why? Or what's a special memory from my childhood? Then pick one and just write whatever comes to mind. Don't worry about grammar or spelling at first, just get your ideas down.
Exactly, and remember, the first draft doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's normal for the first draft to be a little messy. This is where editing comes in, which is something every writer does. When you finish your draft, take a break if you can, then come back and read it with fresh eyes.
That's so true, Max. Editing is all about making your writing clearer and better. You can start by looking for any sentences that might be too long or any ideas that aren't clear. Maybe there's a sentence that you can make shorter or a word that you want to replace. Don't feel rushed. Editing is just as important as writing.
Yes, and here's a good way to check your work: read it out loud. This might sound funny, but when you read out loud, you can often hear if something doesn't sound quite right. Maybe a sentence feels too long, or maybe you'll notice a word you repeated too many times. It's a simple way to catch small mistakes.
That's such a great tip. And also, when you're editing, don't be afraid to ask someone for feedback. Maybe a friend or a teacher can read your work and tell you what they think. Sometimes another person can see things that you missed. And feedback helps you learn and improve.
Absolutely, getting feedback can be so helpful, and it doesn't have to be scary. Remember, everyone is learning, and even professional writers get feedback on their work. So if someone gives you advice, try to think of it as a way to get better.
Yes, and here's another simple editing tip. Try to look for small mistakes, like spelling and punctuation. Even tiny things, like forgetting a period or misspelling a word, can change the meaning of your sentence. Taking a few extra minutes to check for these small errors makes your writing look more professional.
That's a good one, Emma, and if you're not sure about a word or a sentence, you can use tools like spell check or grammar check. They can help you spot mistakes, but remember, they're just tools. It's still important to read your work and make sure it sounds the way you want it to.
Absolutely, Max. And here's one final tip for everyone. Always be proud of your work, no matter where you are in your writing journey. Learning to write in English is a big accomplishment, and every time you practice, you're getting better. So celebrate your progress, even if it's just writing a simple sentence every day.
That's such a great message to end on, Emma. Writing takes time and practice, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And remember, each piece you write is a step forward. Don't worry about perfection, just focus on improving bit by bit. And with that, we hope you enjoyed our tips on improving your English writing.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Remember to keep practicing, keep reading, and enjoy the journey of learning. And if you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends and family. We'd love to help even more people improve their English writing skills.
Definitely. Thanks again, everyone. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you next time. Happy writing!
Bye, everyone.